ETF Inspector. It is Saturday, May 31st, making the week look ahead as well as guesstimate video for YieldMax Fund's ULTI, the Ultra Option Income Strategy Fund, and LFGY, the Crypto Industry and Tech Portfolio Option Income. Hit an exciting milestone today, broke the 500 mark on subscribers, so we're halfway to the goal of 1,000. So thank you. If you haven't subscribed already, please do so. Please like if you like the videos, and leave comments. Share them with other people that are into these funds. We're going to start with ULTI. All right, so we don't need to talk about trades because we already did that on the Friday recap. So we're going to just be going over the updated IVs and the options that are sold, how far in or out of the money, so we know the price range we're looking for the stocks within the fund to trade. Big picture, every single stock within the fund, there wasn't a single one excluded, IV went down. That's not good for us, so that brought down the overall average weighted IV, which is going to bring down our dividend. But I won't sit here and read line by line, but a lot of them have dropped pretty low. We've got only a small handful that are still real nice and high. Core Weave's over 100 at 112%. Hims and Hers is at 93%. Ion Q nearly 95%. Oklow's still over 100 at 104. Rigetti's 96.6%. RH is almost to 90%. But really, that's it. So we don't have a lot of real big ones left, and some of them are really falling low. We got a 40%er on Dell, 38 on Nvidia. Hard to believe Nvidia is a 38% IV, 33% on Snowflake. So not very volatile as far as that's concerned. Let's take a look through and see what our biggest holding is. We got a 4.6, 4.95 on Robinhood, 6% on Nvidia, 6% on Palantir, almost 6% in TQQQ. Yep, so Nvidia is our biggest holding within the fund. They've got $17.5 million just in shares, and then obviously options off of that. So, all right, let's take a look at how our week looks. So, C3.ai, stock ticker's just AI. Their calls, all the calls, I'll point it out if there's any that are different from this, but all the calls are for this coming Friday, June 6th. So we need the price to trade as high as possible without going over 28.50 for us to get the maximum benefit, right? For the market value to go up while still earning the maximum amount of the premium that we collected. So we've collected this already. That's why it shows up as a negative, because we sold something and we have to buy it back to close it. If you're trading on your own, you can also let things expire, but they don't let things expire in this fund. So that's 7% out of the money. I'm not going to call almost anything safe these days, but it's in the green. We call more than 5% out of the money in the green. ASTS, or AST Space Mobile, the calls, 4,750 of the contracts are at 25 with the stock price at 23. So those are 8% out of the money. So again, we just want the stock to move up but stay under 25. Coinbase, 460 contracts at a 270 call strike price, currently at 246.62. So those are about 9.5% out of the money. So that's got room to grow. It's a nice big picture for the most part. Most of these funds can afford to go up a decent amount this week and still stay under their call strikes, so we have a good chance of making money. But we've seen that go wrong in a day before with a 20% pop. CoreWeave, Friday's calls are at 118 with the stock at 111. That's 6% out of the money. Dell Technology also at 111. Their calls are also at 118. So again, 6% out of the money. First Solar is at 158 with calls at 170. That's 7.5% out of the money. Hims and Hers is at 56.56 with a strike of 60 on the calls, also 6% out of the money. Robinhood is pretty close, so we're hoping they don't have a big week. Stocks over 66 with a call strike at 67. That is only 1.2% out of the money. IonQ had that big week at the big jumps at the beginning and then fell the rest of the week. So they're a little over 40 with a 43.50 strike price. That's 7.8% out of the money. Mara Holdings, 14.12 is the current price or the closing on Friday with a strike at 16. That's 13+% out of the money. Marvell Technology, they're only 1.3% out of the money. 60 is the current price. 61 is the strike on 1,250 contracts. And if you're new to this, ULTY does a collar strategy on everything. So they own the shares, they sell calls out of the money, and then they buy puts as like an insurance or a protection, because they're not going to give up the shares. And they also want to basically make money if the shares go down as a way to offset the loss in value of the actual underlying. MicroStrategy, 369 was the closing price. 405 is the strike. That's 9.7% out of the money. Nvidia, 144 strike, 135 closing. That's 6.5% out of the money. Oklo, 60 on the strike, 52.72 close on Friday, nearly 14% out of the money. Here's another one that's a little stressful. Palantir, 132 strike. The stock's at 131.78, so they are just a fraction out of the money. They also have another 720 contracts at 136, 3% out of the money. Wouldn't call them safe either. Reddit, 112.35 was the closing price. 117 is the strike for next Friday. 1,000 contracts, 4.1% out of the money. Rigetti had a rough day, so they're $12 ending with 14.50 and 15.50 strikes are 19 plus, almost 28% out of the money. RH closed at 181. They have 197.50 calls. Those are 9% out of the money. SMCI, 12+% out of the money. 40 was the closing price. 45 is the strike. Snowflake, 210 strikes on 205, so they're only 2% out of the money. This is TNA, the triple leveraged small cap bull. 29.07 is where it ended. $30 and $30.50 are the almost even two legs of these. 3.2 and 4.9% out of the money. TQQQ, the other triple leverage fund, closed at 70 even. They have a strike 2,450 contracts at 73. That's 4.2% out of the money. Tesla ended at 346.46 with a 385 call strike for next Friday. That's 11% out of the money. Upstart Holdings closed at 47.17 with a $48 strike. They're only 1.7% out of the money. Vertiv Holdings, 107.93 was the close. 113 is the strike, 4.7% out of the money. And Vistra Corp, 160.57 with a 170 call strike price for next week, 5.8% out of the money. So now, for this case, most videos, everything over here is outdated. But since we're on a non-trading day, all of the holdings and values were able to catch up without any changes. So this is correct. 357 million. There was an increase on Friday of 1.3 million shares, bringing the outstanding shares up to 58,350,000. The NAV, which is just the value of everything divided by the amount of shares, $6.12, and ULTI closed at $6.15 on Friday. Again, we said that the weighted average of the 30-day IV of all the underlyings is 67.25. So I don't just average all these numbers out. I take into account how much is in each fund, right? So 112 at 4.6%, right? 40.7, 2.68. So all of it gets combined to make that weighted average. It's going to be the most accurate way to do it. All right, so the part you guys are interested in, you want to know how we did and if we're getting a nice distribution. So we went through the trades all throughout the week, right? There was only 4 trading days, which doesn't help when you're trying to make weekly income. On Monday, they lost 434,000. On Tuesday, they made 611,000. So if you were keeping up with the videos, oh, actually, never mind. I'm confusing that with LFGY. So made 611,000. Thursday, they made 484,000, and on Friday they made 53,000. So that's a total win of $714,943. So if we based our estimate off of the income, so you just take that total made, divide it by the 58 million plus shares, that would come out to a 1.23 cent per share dividend. They won't be paying that. If we totaled up, so the share values increased throughout the week, 13.6 million on Tuesday. They lost 4.2 million on Wednesday. They lost 3.2 million on Thursday, and they lost just under $1 million on Friday. But that came out to an overall gain of 5 million. So if we combine the share value increase with the trading increases, divide it by all the shares, that'd be 9.99 cents. But I'd love to get a chance to, maybe when I get a little bit bigger, I can have an interview with them and ask some questions of my own, but see if they even take this into account. I mean, I know they do take into account the price of the fund, right? So if it goes up a good amount, they can afford to pay a distribution and you still be doing well. Whereas if it drops a lot, then you pay a big distribution, you're really dropping. So, but anyway, I don't think that's going to be it. The IV, so we talked about the weighted average. So we take the weighted average, multiply it by the closing price on Friday, because remember, they are making all these decisions based off of close on Friday. So it won't matter what the fund does on Monday and Tuesday, even though they don't declare till Wednesday. So if we take that weighted average, we multiply it by the closing price, and then we divide that out by the 52 weekly payments, that would come out to just under 8 cents, 7.95 cents per share. So my guess is it's going to be 8.5 cents. But I mean, if they only pay us basically the 7.95 or the 8 cents, no matter what, they're taking care of us, right? Because really they only made enough to pay us a penny. So, but my guess, 8.5 cents. Let me know what you think. If you think it's going to be higher or lower. I don't know. All right, next we'll get to LFGY. Been getting a big increase in people looking for this. So, okay, did the same thing with LFGY. Actually, yeah. So, and same scenario. Every single stock within the fund, their 30-day IV dropped. So, still have some high ones, right? BitDeer's still 95+%. Galaxy's at 88. We'll mention Hut 8 Corp 84%, but we've got some low ones, 29%. Couple in the 30s, another 29%. PayPal, 43. So overall, right? Our weighted average is dropping, so it's even lower than in ULTI. This one's in the 50s now, 59%. If we take a look through, I'm pretty sure Coinbase is either the biggest or the second biggest. Yep. So the majority of these are in Coinbase with 12.5% and MicroStrategy with 11%. If you've been following along, right, you noticed the last time that they bought into a different stock, they sold a little bit of Coinbase to get it because that's where they've got the biggest amount of money. So if they wanted to kind of even things out, reallocate a little bit, that's the place to take it from. All right, if we go through, look at our options for this week. We do have a handful that are not just out till Friday. Galaxy's a June 20th. MBTX is a June 20th. Opera's a June 20th. Everything else I mentioned will be a June 6th. All right, so BitDeer closed at $12.86 per share. Their strike is at 16. They have 3,229 contracts. Let's do this real quick. It's going to be a number with a comma. Make it a little bit easier to see what we're looking at. So they're 24% out of the money on those. Some of the ones in this fund are so far out of the money, I wouldn't be surprised if we see early closes and roll down to a lower strike still within the same week to try and capture more money, because I think they're going to make the most of these pretty early. CleanSpark has calls at 9.50 and 10. The vast majority are at 9.50. They are 10% out of the money, with the other ones at 15.8% out of the money. I just want to mention LFGY does not follow the same strategy that ULTI does. They do not do collars. Sometimes they'll just sell the call by itself with no insurance, and then other times the way they protect themselves is just call spreads. So they'll sell a call closer to the money, and then they'll buy a call further out from the money, and that just protects them. That just limits the amount they can lose. All right, Coinbase just has calls sold at 260 with the stock at 246.62. Those are about 5.5% out of the money. Core Scientific closed at 1065. They have 1150 call strike price. Those are just about 8% out of the money. Here's another one, Galaxy. These are out till the 20th, so not this Friday or the next Friday, but the one after that. $25 call strike price with an 18.15 closing price. Those are nearly 38% out of the money. GameStop has 31s and 38s, but most of them are at 31 with the stock at 29.80. Those are 4% out of the money, and the 38s are 27.5% out of the money. Robinhood, $69 strike, 66.15 closing price. They're 4.3% out of the money. Look, they definitely don't keep nice, neat numbers of shares. Hut 8 Corp, $15.27 is where it ended. $16.50 is the call strike price. That's 8% out of the money. They don't trade options on iShares, iBit. iShares Bitcoin Trust ETF. IBIT is the ticker. And they do have a lot in them, almost 10%. $11 million, but they don't trade options on that. Mara, this one always looks funny because it's mixed with MBTX. So they just have 1550s as their strike price, 6,000 plus contracts. 14.12 was the closing price on Friday. Those are almost 10% out of the money. And then MBTX, again, these are out till June 20th. They have a call spread with the sold calls at 260 and the closing price at 247.61. So they are 5% out of the money. Mercado Libre, stock ticker MELI. This is the high dollar fund, right? They closed at $2,563.29. They have $2,602.50 calls. Surprised they have 50-cent increments, or I guess they have $2.50 increments. but they are 1.53% out of the money. MicroStrategy, 385s is their call strike price. So they play it a little tighter than I think we said ULTI was at 405. So 385s and 387.50s, almost equally spread out. 369.06 was the closing price. They're 4.3 and 5% out of the money. NU Holdings, 12.50 strike price, 12.01 closing price. So that 49 cents is a 4% out of the money. NVIDIA closed at 135.13 with a 142 strike on this coming week's calls. They're 5% out of the money. Opera, these are out for a couple weeks, June 20th. 18.35 is where it ended. $20 is the call strike price, 9% out of the money. PayPal Holdings, $70.28 was the closing. $72 is the strike price. They're almost 2.5% out of the money. Riot Platforms, 807 was the closing, $9 and $9.50, with most of them at $9. But look, they're already 7 cents and 4 cents, so they're not going to keep these open very long. I mean, there's no reason to let that ride and possibly cost you money when it only costs $600 to close it. But they are 11.5 and 17.7% out of the money. Tesla's, again, closed at 346.46. Their strike price is 372.50. That's 7.5% out of the money. And Block, XYZ is the ticker, closed at 61.75. They have $64 strike price on their calls. They're 3.6% out of the money. The fund is worth just over $114 million now. There was no change in shares on Friday, so it's still 2,975,000. The NAV is 38.42, so it's definitely down a little bit over the last week or two. So let's get to the distribution. This is the one where I made a change. On the Thursday video, I called it a $27 million gain in trading because they sold tons of shares right here. This ended up being like $26 million in shares sold. But after looking back at what they did the week before, it doesn't seem like they're including that in their trading, their options trading income, because that's not options. So, and without it, so it'd be ridiculous, right? If I included the 27 million, it would be, absolutely enormous, biggest distribution. So it's just not happening. So, but they had a great week. Made 50,000 on Monday, 170,000 on Tuesday, 940,000 on Tuesday, Wednesday, 940,000 on Thursday, and 381,000 on Friday. Love to see it. So $1.5 million made. So if we base our estimate off of the income, right, which is what the fund is, they made enough to pay us, dividing it out by the 29,750,000 shares, or did I say that right? 2,957,000 shares. I don't know. Almost 52 cents. I don't think they're going to pay us that, though. If we combined the two, like we talked about before, the trading and the share increase in value, which I don't think they do, I'm actually thinking about stopping including that in the estimate, but I'll mention it for now until I get a chance to ask some questions. But obviously they lost money, right? So if the stocks go down all week or almost all week, then you're going to win on all the calls that you sold because you didn't have to worry about them getting blown through. So that's kind of how that week's going to look. So we'd actually, it's a negative, so it doesn't even work because they lost too much in value. Most likely situation, right, base it off the IV. So we talked about it on the first page, the weighted IV, 59.25%. So we take the, what did I do? 59.25. I don't know where I got that number. 59. 59.25% times the closing price of the fund, 38.48. Divide that by 52 weekly payments. Comes out to 43, almost 44 cents. So we're getting used to 49, but it has not been that long since they paid less than 49. Right, we had a couple 49s, 47, 75, 47, and then there's a 40, there's a 43, there's a 41, a 41. All right, so I think less than 49 is possible. So we talked about last week, they paid out more than they made. All right, so they didn't make enough to pay us, but they just paid the IV anyway. So now this week they made more than the IV, but you know, if the only way they can afford to pay us the IV when they don't make us the money is when they do make the money, they got to hold some back. So I don't think we're getting the full 51, 52 cents. I think they'll give us a little bit over the IV since they made more. So my guess is 45. I know you guys don't want to hear that, but I don't know. What do you think? You think it's going to be more? You know, I haven't been covering them obviously all year, so I don't know if we've got a lot in the bank or if they've paid out more than they've made more often. So as we do this more and more, we'll gather more and more information and be able to make better estimates. So all right, that's all there is for that. So I got the dad joke of the day. Before I do, just thank you. Thanks for watching. Appreciate it. Lots of encouraging comments. This has been fun and exciting. So if you guys want to keep seeing these videos, just keep coming. I'll keep making them. All right, dad joke of the day. Why shouldn't you write with a broken pencil? Because it's pointless. Okay, thanks for watching. Keep an eye out for the other video I make. If you are interested at all, I did make a My Trades video where I just go over the trades I made this past week along with dividend funds that I'm holding and just the different positions I'm in, even if I didn't make a trade. So obviously not as popular as the regular ones, but if I'm going to sit here and track it all anyway, I'll talk about it. Somebody might be interested. So, okay, thank you. Have a nice weekend.